Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the final, dramatic moments of a man who literally reframed human history. We're talking about a philosopher who looked at death not as some tragic, finite end, but as the ultimate liberation of the soul from the physical body. It's a huge shift in thinking, and to really grasp it, we actually need to start at the very end of his life.
So picture this. It's 399 BC. We're in a freezing, dark cell. The stakes here? Absolutely massive. You've got this old, barefoot man sitting calmly on a stone bed, and he's holding a clay cup of poison. The jailer handing it to him is literally trembling. But the old man, he doesn't let a single hair in his white beard shake. He's facing a brutal binary choice right now. He can either renounce his entire life's work, swallow his pride, and essentially buy his life with silence, or he can drink that poison down to the very last drop. To understand exactly how we ended up in that cell, we have to flash back just a bit. Think of the golden age of Athens. On one hand, you have the greatest ancient democracy. Wealthy, arrogant elites strutting around the public squares in fine silk, bragging about their victories next to these towering, glorious temples. And on the other hand, you have Socrates, the son of a simple sculptor and a midwife. He's wandering barefoot among them in total rags. He didn't see the glory in those palaces, He just saw society rotting from the inside with ignorance, vanity, and pretense. Honestly, he was like a ghost sent specifically to ruin their arrogance. And the spark that set him on this incredibly dangerous path, it actually came from the famous oracle of Delphi. A friend of his goes up and asks the oracle a super straightforward question. Who is the wisest of humans? The divine voice answers without hesitation. Socrates is the wisest of all mortals. But the really fascinating part here is how Socrates reacted to this. He didn't let it go to his head. He didn't get drunk on his own ego. Instead, he was genuinely shocked. He was filled with doubt and deeply questioned the whole prophecy. He approached this prophecy with what you might call the ultimate philosophical pride. He thought to himself, how could he possibly be the wisest man alive when he knew, for a fact, that he didn't know anything? And that right there is the realization that defined his entire legacy. True wisdom, it lies solely in admitting your own ignorance. So to test the oracle's claim, he takes to the streets. He heads down to the public markets of Athens and just starts interrogating people. The famous judges, renowned poets, arrogant politicians, no one was safe. And he used these deceptively simple but absolutely lethal questions. He'd just walk up and ask things like, what is justice? Or what is good? Or what is courage? This whole routine evolved into this devastating three-step method. Step 1, he asks the elite a question. Step 2, they answer with this supreme, unearned arrogance, and he just calmly dismantles their claims with pure logic. He's taking their arguments apart like a house of cards. Then, step 3, they're left totally exposed, stripped of all their supposed knowledge right in front of a crowd of young Athenians who are just laughing at the fallen pride of their leaders. Through this, Socrates finally realized why he was the wisest. He alone admitted his ignorance, while everyone else was faking it. But as you can imagine, publicly crushing the egos of powerful people, that comes with a massive price tag. And that price was a dark, calculated conspiracy cooked up in dimly lit rooms. 3 resentful leaders of the Athenian community, completely united by this burning desire for revenge, drafted a fatal indictment. The charges they fabricated were essentially written in poison. They claimed Socrates was corrupting the minds of the youth, rejecting the gods of the city, and inventing new beliefs altogether. And the proposed penalty for all this? Death. Now, just think about the sheer scale of this trial. 501. That's the number of Athenian citizen judges he stood against. He was completely alone in this massive amphitheater, with a huge, anxious crowd watching his every move. His young students, including Plato, are literally in tears. But Socrates? He doesn't hire some fancy orator to defend him. He doesn't shed a single tear. And he absolutely does not beg for mercy to try and soften the judges' hearts. Instead of begging, he honestly just roasts them. In his brilliant defense, he stands there with his head held high and compares the mighty city of Athens to a large, lazy horse. And himself? He says he's just a gadfly. One of those annoying flies that bites livestock. He boldly tells them that the gods specifically sent him to sting this lazy horse and wake it up from its intellectual slumber. Oh, and it gets even bolder. Under the Athenian legal system, the defendant was actually asked to propose an alternative punishment to death. So they ask him what he thinks he deserves. He looks them dead in the eye and delivers the ultimate insult to Athenian pride. He demands to be rewarded with free meals for life in the official banquet hall, basically saying, "You guys should be paying me for my great services to the city." Unsurprisingly, that was the final straw. The judge's patience just snapped. The Athenian ego simply couldn't handle that level of mockery. So the angry judges cast their votes, and the final verdict was absolutely decisive: execution by drinking poisonous hemlock.
Which brings us right back to that freezing, dark cell. Just days before the execution, his heartbroken students actually pulled off the impossible and bribed the guards. They had this watertight escape plan, complete with a ship waiting in the port to whisk him away to safety. His loyal friend Crito is practically begging him to flee, and this sets up a profound philosophical dilemma. Does he escape, betraying the very laws he lived under his whole life just to save his physical body? Or does he embrace execution to immortalize his ideas? Ultimately, Socrates firmly refuses to run. He just smiles calmly at Crito and explains that he had spent his entire life enjoying the protection of Athens' laws. He couldn't just rebel against them now simply because they were no longer convenient. If he fled, he'd argued, he'd be proving to the world that he was terrified of death. He'd literally be assassinating his own philosophy with his own two hands. As he so beautifully put it, his ideas would live by his death, but they would surely die by his escape. So, at sunset on that fateful day, the weeping jailer brings in the cup of black hemlock. Socrates takes it with a totally steady hand. He asks his sobbing students to be brave, and with this incredible royal dignity, he drinks the dark liquid in one single gulp. He lies down on his stone bed, and the poison slowly begins to numb his feet. Then, that creeping cold moves upward to his torso, finally culminating in his last breath. But right before his eyes close forever, he turns to his friend and speaks his final, deeply enigmatic words. He says, "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please don't forget to pay the debt." Now you might be wondering, why is that significant at all? Well, Asclepius was the ancient Greek god of medicine and healing. Back then, people offered sacrifices to Asclepius specifically when they were cured of a terrible illness. And this final request perfectly encapsulates the absolute core of his philosophy. Socrates didn't view death as an end, and he certainly didn't see it as a tragedy. He viewed death as the ultimate healing. To him, the real illness was the physical world itself, the ignorance and the heavy confines in being human. Death was simply the profound moment the soul was finally cured, breaking completely free from the prison of the physical body. The physical man died that day, sure, but the immortal legend of philosophy was just being born. Years later, Athens felt this burning, violent regret for its horrific mistake. They actually went on to execute and exile the very conspirators who framed him. Decades later, they even erected a bronze statue of him right in the heart of the city. But obviously, it was far too late. They had already immortalized him. The tyrants and the ignorant elites honestly thought that by breaking the cup, they could bury the idea. They were completely oblivious to the fact that killing the thinker is exactly what immortalizes the thought. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question to ponder. How many bodies are executed in our world today, only to inadvertently